RDMS.
Whenever I do fight again, I need Christian Reynoso there on commentary. Otherwise, I'm not doing it.
What's up, guys, and welcome back to another edition of Reynoso. Noso Christian here. I got a super exciting episode ahead of us as I'm sitting down with a guest. I don't even know where to start, guys. Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt, UFC veteran, tough veteran, MMA pioneer, current UFC analyst, and coach to some of the top stars in the world. You may know him from Dean Thomas's Fight Court or Dana White's Looking for a Fight, the one and only Dean Thomas. Thank you for joining me, my friend.
Man, thank you for having me. I got to tell you, I just pulled off the side of the road to do this because I'm headed over to Joe Pyfer's house to train with him. So,
well, if there's one thing we know about Joe Pyfer and Dana White's advice is be like Joe Pyfer. So you're headed the right place.
Yeah, and somehow he conned me into coming over to his house.
Whatever the case, man, we know you're a guy that wears a million hats. You're able to, obviously, we know you're a fighter. We've seen you in the corner for so many like huge fights, big fighters, and now we see you cage side, obviously for the UFC. But the way you and I got in touch was actually through the Instagram page for your short film that you got coming up, Flowers. So we might as well touch on that first, and we'll kind of go from there.
Well, I'm still recovering from that process. It was a long 4 days of filming, 14, 15 hours a day, just a straight grind. And I had just an amazing crew. I flew in from California, Dean Kamara, who I work with on Looking for a Fight. He's one of the camera guys on Looking for a Fight. He came in and filmed it and helped me direct it. And, it's a story, a lot of MMA people will go, oh, I want to do movies. And they come in and they start doing like MMA movies. And that was the last thing that I wanted to do. Like, I don't want to do anything MMA related when I'm outside of MMA. So I wanted to do and I wrote the story, and it's about a female who just has relationships with just different people in her life and how she navigates through that. So it's a very relatable story to everybody that I think that you guys will really enjoy. Hopefully we can get this thing edited up and then out sometime in the early to mid 2026.
Okay, nice. I'm assuming it's going to be maybe like a 30-minute type.
Yeah, it's a short film. It's a short film. Yeah, I'm not qualified, and it's way above my pay grade to be doing features.
Well, I know you when you did Brotherhood, that was a much bigger project.
No, that was actually still a short.
Still considered, all right, fair enough. Because I remember when that was coming out, it getting the attention of some film festivals, which I thought was pretty exciting considering that, like you said, a lot of times MMA fighters, when they make that transition, sort of pigeonholed to like, making the next, like up and coming fighter movie, the next Rocky film, but you're willing to, or more so looking to go outside of that.
Yeah. And that's about, so, we're going to release Brotherhood soon. Because it was we had a tremendous film festival run with Brotherhood. We won different awards, and it was showcased in London and in New York. So we had a tremendous run with it. So we're going to release it soon. But that was about as much combat sports as I'll get into, because it did have a component of combat sports because me and Eve Edwards were the stars of it, and Rashad Evans is also in it. He plays our father in a flashback. So I hope you guys enjoy that. It's kind of a touchy subject, but hey, listen, this is if it's touchy to you and it offends some people, you may need to look a little deeper inside yourself.
And, it doesn't surprise me, you being the Renaissance man you are, that you want to look at these things from different angles, because I think a lot of times things are not as we take them initially, right? And like you said, if it triggers something in you, and I think that speaks volumes to just society in general. If you're getting triggered by certain things, maybe the issue isn't necessarily on the outside. Like you said, you got to look to the inside.
Well, I mean, like you said, things are rarely what we think they are. Like, we see something on the surface and then we automatically assume that's the reason behind everything. And it happens a lot with fights too. We see, for instance, we see a guy like Marab who's, he's got tremendous cardio, but there's a reason why he has cardio. It's not because he runs more than everybody else. I mean, that's just what we see. So nothing is ever really what you see on the surface. There's a lot of underlying factors involved in everything in life.
Yeah, absolutely. And you also kind of just getting back to transitioning to, let's say, movies, for instance, for a fighter. Obviously, there's always the attraction of the lights and being, on the big screen. But at the end of the day, if you're a fighter, maybe there's more to it. You're trying to think about what your next step is after your fight career or whatever that may be. Um, so while I'm talking about that, you're recently on Rogan's podcast on the Protect Your Necks show, and the topic of, I think you're talking about Cyril Gahn. The topic of him acting in movies came up. And Joe's like, man, that is the death of all fighters. And I think you contribute like, yeah, that or the music industry, right? So let's go into that a little bit. Do you think, I think your acting career goes back to like '07 or so, like from the stuff that I dug up. And like, that's when you were in the thing. I mean, that's when the Jeremy Stevens fight happened that we were laughing about before we went live was. So like, is that something is that an opinion you have or that you were able to agree with because you lived it or something you've seen? Or can we just go into that a little bit more?
Oh, 100%. I mean, it's the death. Well, again, it's one of them things. It's not what you think it is. Like people think, oh, you can memorize lines, so you can be an actor, or oh, you have a big personality, so you could be an actor. But acting is so much more difficult than that. Like to be a real actor, to be a real thespian, it's a craft, and it's a craft that you have to work on daily. I've been taking acting classes since you said 2007. I've been taking them since like 2002.
Wow.
And not continuously, but like off and on. And for the last couple of years, I've been doing it continuously. For like the last 3 years, I've been in acting class continuously. But because it's a craft, it's almost like thinking, oh, you're a good street fighter, so you can fight in the UFC. And you might have a punch to knock somebody out. Like you might be able to cry on camera at will, but that doesn't make you a real actor. And MMA people or people in general don't understand that. Like it is a real craft to be an actor, and it requires a tremendous amount of work, the same amount of work that it requires to be a good fighter.
Yeah, I think whether we're talking about movies, TV shows, or even like from the sports entertainment side, you see the talent, right? You see the work. Maybe you see some of the behind the scenes stuff that they do, but like you said, there's just so much more to it from the production end, from the preparation standpoint. And I'd have to imagine that the work ethic that goes into being a fighter and preparing properly, it is something that you can kind of parlay into the movie world or the next venture if you play it right.
Yeah, for sure. Because when you think about training for a fight, before you're training for a fight, you're doing wrestling practice, and then you're doing jiu-jitsu practice, and then you're doing striking practice, and then you're doing maybe some sort of physical fitness exercises. And then you're able to understand that it requires that level of attention to detail to each specific thing. So then when you're able to know how to do that, then you can go to acting and be like, all right, this scene requires me to do this, so I need to be really good at this. And then moving on, another scene requires you to do that, so I need to be really good at that. And then you have to be able to pivot. You got to be able to stay in the moment. So there are a lot of parallels between fighting and acting. It's just most people don't see it. Most people think that if you can just remember lines and be comfortable, you can be an actor. But it's not that easy, my friend. You can get away with it. You can cheat it a little bit from editing, but that doesn't make you a real actor.
Right. And I'd imagine that just like if somebody shows up at the gym pretending to be a fighter, the real fighters know pretty quickly. I'd imagine it's a pretty uncomfortable situation showing up on set, trying to pretend you know what's going on, pretend you're ready when you haven't done the actual work. Everyone's going to know, right?
Yeah, everybody knows that they didn't do the work. Like, oh, this guy, he's not ready. Well, and that's why it's hard to be an actor because, if you got an actor who's not ready and there's a crew of 30 people and you're holding 30 people up that are getting paid, it's like, dude, you can't, like in fighting, you just go out there and get your ass kicked. But in acting, like if you're holding the crew up, they got to fire you because you're holding the crew up.
For the yeah. I can imagine. I can only imagine the pressure, the beads of sweat start to form, right?
Well, I mean, think about it. You know how, I mean, you have your own craft in itself doing play by play.
Right.
And I have a tremendous amount of respect for that. I remember telling, uh, the production guys at the UFC, I was like, hey, man, listen, one day I want to not do play by play, but run lead on the death shows. And then, like, I saw how much work they're doing. I'm like, damn, I don't know if I don't know if I like being an analyst. I don't know if I got that in me just yet right now. I want to work on that skill set, but it's a different muscle and it's a different skill set, what you do. And so, and you talked about John Anik. John Anik, if people knew how much that guy worked on his craft, like how much he works on his craft, just getting named, like he works so much that he gets pissed off at us for mispronouncing a name. Because because he holds us to his standard. He's like, hey, listen, I was in my room all night while you guys were out drinking, making sure I get these names right. So you better get the name right because I got the name right because I did my work. That's John Anik's work ethic. I respect that.
Yeah, fair enough, right? Like, I mean, you gotta, like you said, you gotta respect it. You gotta get it. And at the end of the day, he is the gold standard as far as I'm concerned, and I think the majority of the world as far as combat sports broadcasting goes. Well, while we're talking about like pivoting and trying to figure out like what your next, what you want to move into after fighting, or like acting, let's say, I think acting is obviously great. It's not going to be for everybody. You see a lot of these guys switch over to BKFC after their UFC careers, or looking for other avenues, whether it's BKFC, karate, combat, but also very natural progression, sometimes pro wrestling as well. Whether they go from the pro wrestling into fighting, but sometimes the other way around. Not a bad direction to go as well. I'd be remiss not to touch on it. While let's go ahead. It's not uncommon to see you see a UFC guy at a WWE event or at a more local show. In the last couple of days, obviously, Rajah Jackson, Rampage Jackson's son, involved in a really ugly altercation at a small wrestling event. Obviously, the majority of the world probably already knows what happens. Just real briefly, looked like he was potentially not. Well, the majority of the world has seen it and has seen the footage. As we said, it was kind of it was pretty. It was not ideal.
Say it.
I don't want to say it. I don't want to say it. All right, let's go.
I'll say it.
Hit it.
It was it was disgusting to watch. It was disgusting to watch. And we can't really make a lot of excuses for the young man. The only thing I really want to know what the situation was, why he was even there in the first place. Like, if he's there in the first place, knowing he's going to a pro wrestling show and somebody smashes a can of beer on your head, like a pro wrestler does that, you would assume that, like, if you're there for that reason, I would assume, I'm not saying he should, I would assume that's part of the gig. Right? That's what I'm assuming. I'm assuming that's part of the gig. So, and I understand he got mad then, and then they squashed it. He apologized, and then he did what he did. And they're like, yeah, he shouldn't have been in that position in the first place. So why was he even in-house? I don't understand why he was in-house.
Yeah, it was weird because I've read different accounts. I read at one point that it was like it was an acquaintance of his or friends of his that was throwing the event, and he came out. But just being, who he is and having the name, even if he wasn't in on it immediately, like you said, after the incident, after they talked, he certainly realized that it was intended to be part of the show and it was discussed. And for it to it's not like it escalated immediately. It was a long, drawn out, and for better, for worse, a legitimately documented the whole course up until that. As you said, it's just hands down just a disgusting display where this, wrestling event's going on and things just got disgustingly real, disgustingly fast.
Well, not only it didn't end there, because there's footage of him outside talking afterwards, walking and talking afterwards, which to me made it worse because he was still talking himself into it, still rallying himself up. I mean, it's unfortunate because I hate to see young brothers go through this. I hate to see it. but there are repercussions for everything. There's consequences, and everybody kind of has mixed feelings on this. I would think most people see it the way you and I see it, as it was kind of disgusting. I would think that, but I've seen some people go, "Well, that guy deserved it." Like, what the hell are you talking about? He's You're in a pro wrestling show, and a pro wrestler did a pro wrestling gag on you.
Yeah.
And if you weren't in on it then, he apologized. Yeah. Um, yeah, to me, everybody's wondering, does he do time? I'm surprised they didn't lock him up yet.
Right.
If he's not locked up now. I am surprised, which leads me to believe that the LAPD is just trumping up charges to see what they can get, to see how deep they can go with the charges. That's what I think.
Well, thank God, from what I've read, I mean, the guy is stable, the wrestler is alive, and obviously, for as far as charges and all that goes, if you're Rajah Jackson, you're incredibly relieved. But like you said, those videos from afterwards are really disturbing. How he's still kind of trying to not justify it as much as he's by no means pointing out that what just happened was really wrong.
He was justifying it. But that's how villains justify things. Villains don't.
I guess you're right. You're right.
Villains don't think they're villains. Villains think that whatever they did was justifiable, or else, because everybody thinks that they're in the right. So in his mind, he was in the right. And he might look back at it now, maybe, and be like, "Damn, I was wrong." But at the time, he was justifying his actions as being right because he felt disrespected.
Well, and he being one of these young guys that lives essentially streaming at all times, constantly with a camera on himself. That's a whole nother thing. You know, I'm about to start sounding like an old head and just talking about what that's probably doing to a generation, right? Like, I got my kids running around upstairs and I think about that sort of stuff, that they're growing into potentially some great unknown that you and I never did. But this guy lives his life on Kick. Speaking of kicks, about a week ago, he came out. I've known of Rajah Jackson. I knew who he was. And I was reminded of that about a week ago when I saw a video of somebody tornado kicking him in the head. And that's the video. I don't know if you know about that either.
I didn't see that.
Oh, man. So that's also part of the justification that Rampage brought up. So before any of this happened, about a week ago, there's footage of somebody in the gym. He's sparring. The guy is a smaller guy, but he throws a jump and spinning kick, nails Raj on the chin, and he rocks him. That video leaks, and then the question became on the internet, well, is it cool to spar that hard? Should he really be, so that became a clip that was out there. So it was just really, it was weird timing that less than a week later, a week later, all of this goes down. So when this goes down and Rampage is talking about everything, about his son afterwards, I did hear him bring it up. He's like, he's concussed. He just got concussed a week ago. So I'm sure that's going to be another factor that gets brought up. The validity of it is, what do I know? I'm not a doctor, right? But that is another thing, man, is there was a video going around from about a week before where he's in sparring, he gets cracked. So his egos are, aside from potentially being messed up from that, I'm assuming his ego is bruised because there's a video of him everywhere.
That's what it was.
And then he gets punked potentially, or feels he gets punked by this guy. Potentially a lifetime maybe of people fucking with you because you're Rampage's kid. I mean, let's just be honest. I don't know, but I know what kids are like. I remember being a teenager. I have my own kids, and I know what kids are like. That may not have been easy growing up as Ramp. So, you just have to wonder, and this is not a justification in the least, because I'm with you. I don't understand why he's not behind bars if he isn't already. But you just have to wonder if a boiling point was reached, or it certainly seems like it, right?
Dude, I think now that you told me about this tornado kick and that being leaked and that going over the internet, I'm sure that now it makes a lot of sense of why he's going on this, for lack of better terms, rampage after the fact. Like, I ain't no punk. I ain't no punk, because there were probably comments saying, "Oh, he's not that good," and they were probably disrespecting him after him getting kicked and dazed on the internet. So now he's in his head got to get back.
Between that and not potentially being well from being concussed, right? Like, and whoever knows what else is going on. Yeah.
I don't know. I'm with you though. I'm not a doctor, but all I can say is I've never seen anybody get concussed a week before and then go go bananas. I don't know. Maybe it's possible. I thought it would be more of a chronic issue, like concussions, and then you start having issues. I never seen it before where it was like, all right, I had days last week, so now I can't control myself.
That's a great point. And not just can't control himself. It's not like a moment of insanity. Like, had they were trying to pull him off for a while, and he was trying to get back to him, and it
didn't look good.
That's nasty. That is really, really gross. Yeah, and like you said, there's some people that do have different opinions. I think it was Sean Strickland that came out. He, of course, he had a tough upbringing, and for the very same reason, he was like, I remember being young, and this kid might just need counseling. Coming from Strickland, I was like, oh, okay. But I also saw why maybe he would feel that way. But, yeah, I suppose to each their own, right?
Strickland's not exactly the ambassador for
any of the. He's suspended right now, isn't he? For like a reason that bad, tough enough.
Yeah, he's still suspended. He's currently suspended for not being able to control himself.
That's a good point. That's a really good point, man.
Yeah, he should not be the one talking about controlling yourself. We're talking about a guy who has zero impulse control.
Yeah, that's right, because he just erupted at that regional at that tough enough. All right. Well, speaking of regional promotions, one of my favorite things the UFC did in recent years, and something that I used to like because I could sit down and enjoy with my kids, was we sit down and watch Dana White's Looking for a Fight. For those that haven't watched it, Dana, yourself, Matt, Sarah, going out to regional promotions and getting to see some of the up and coming talent, along with doing a lot of other fun stuff. I really, like, I've known of you forever, but I feel like I really got to know you and your personality a little bit more during that. Are we going to be seeing any more of those?
Man, I don't know. I don't think so. They never told us it was done, but we had a great run. It was an 8-year run. They never told us it was done. If they called me tomorrow and be like, yo, we're going to shoot again, I'll be the first one in line. But I don't see it happening with Dana's schedule, with Zuffa boxing coming around, and just so much stuff going on. I mean, I'm praying that we could do another one, at least one more, but and plus we're older now. So before it was a lot of fun doing the crazy stunts, but now I'm like, yo, I don't know if I'm gonna.
Well, I know
if I'm gonna jump off a cliff.
Well, I know what I know what my kid's favorite Dean Thomas moment is. Shout out Tommy and Christian, who are sitting upstairs, because when I told them I was sitting down to do an interview with you, I'll tell you why they got excited. They're like, the guy that ate the bull testicles? I'm like, yeah, that's the guy.
Listen, that's all it takes to impress a couple juniors.
They're 9 and 11, dog. It's not, I've gotten to talk to some like pretty cool people, some like legends. But it's gonna be stuff like that perks them up, and I think you understand that.
Oh, if that's all it takes to eat some bull testicles, yeah, I'm in. I can do that. I won't age out of that. Also, I don't know. It's and I was thinking about this too. This is a young man's world, and I'm not. I see it, man. I see everything from every angle, and sometimes I go, man, maybe we just aged out. Like, who wants to see a bunch of 50-year-old guys, running around doing dumb stuff? And then somebody told me a bunch of 50-year-old guys. I said, hey, that's true. Yeah. So who knows? Who knows? I'm hoping that we can do a few more. I don't know. Maybe with the Paramount deal, maybe Paramount will pick it up. But
what was
I keep my fingers crossed.
What was the of all the like whatever challenges, the crazy stuff you did? What's one that like really stuck out to you as like maybe the hardest or the craziest one? Because you guys did some wild stuff.
Yeah, swimming with sharks.
Oof. That's
Yeah.
fair enough. That's fair enough.
Yeah.
I remember. Yeah, you dude. Were you
I don't
getting put
swim,
on the
dog.
spot? Were you getting put on the spot or
Yeah.
did you? You didn't know going in like what you're gonna be challenged with leading up to the episodes.
So they tell us what we're going to do, and it takes me a couple of days to psych myself up. Like, all right, swimming with sharks. But they said we were going to go in a cage, a shark cage. And I was like, all right, get ready, get in the water, go in this shark cage, swim with some sharks. We're going to be in a cage. And when we get there, they're like, oh, there's no cage. You're just going to get in with the sharks. I'm like, wait a minute. No. And then I had to reconvince myself to go and do it. And then when we get out there, they start throwing chum in the water to attract the sharks so that we can see a better. I'm like, yo, y'all. So I jumped in. I jumped in first, man. I jumped in first. And as soon as I saw one, my heart did something it never did before, man. It really, my heart stopped. Like, I thought I was going to die. And I couldn't get to the edge of the boat fast enough. I thought I was going to die. I thought I'd never make it to the edge of the boat. And when I did, I'm like, just get this stuff off me. I'm not going back in there.
You're like already seeing headlines like UFC's Dean Thomas eaten during filming, right? Like it's
Yeah, man. I thought, or at least a leg taken off. I thought it was take a leg off, but it was so scary because I don't swim, so I'm like doggy paddling to the edge of the boat and like trying to climb the rope because I don't swim, and then they hand me a rope. I'm like doggy paddling trying to climb the rope, and I'm like trying to get to the edge, and it felt like an hour to maybe do like 20 feet, and I'm like, and then the whole time I'm thinking that I'm gonna get drug under by a shark, and I'm just like, help.
you don't swim, but you jumped off that cliff in Hawaii, no problem.
Yeah, I don't swim. Jumped off the cliff, went down, straight back up, and they grabbed me.
I thought you were gonna say maybe of the challenges that I don't know, man. I do this, I do commentary, I read in my church, but man, jumping up to do stand up, that I remember watching that when I was like, oh, I remember feeling my own stomach going, oh shit. That's gotta be tough.
That was pretty tough, but again, I've been doing improv comedy for a while, which is completely different. But I've hosted improv comedy shows. So I tried to treat it like I was just hosting a show.
Got it.
Yeah. So, it's wild what the mind can do for you if you just shift your perspective. Because I had always been terrified of doing stand-up comedy. I never wanted to do it. But when I got the gig on a day's notice, and they said, "Hey, you're doing stand-up comedy," and I was like, my biggest fear. So I had to shift my perspective of it's not stand-up comedy. You're just gonna host a show and just say stuff, and that's how I treated it. And it
Man,
wasn't that bad. I mean, it wasn't that. Once you get up there, it's like, okay, this is not that bad.
yeah. Would you give it another chance? Would you give it another shot?
Oh, I've done it numerous times after.
No, but like, would you want to do it anymore? Like regularly, let's say.
No, and the reason why, like when I talked to Joe Rogan about it, and he was like, it's like jujitsu. Like if you don't practice all the time, it's probably not worth doing it a couple times.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I thought about it, like I like it, and I would want to. I don't have the outlet to like if I had a place to go to just do stand up, I would
Yeah.
probably do it. But I'm not. But I don't want to be this dude going up in these random bars. I gotta bring 10 people with me. I don't want to be that. Like, in fact, like I had a coffee shop. And I'm no longer involved with it, but I had a coffee shop, and I was going to turn that into like a place where I could do stand up and open mic and things like that. And that's the biggest reason why I'm upset about not being involved in the coffee shop anymore, because I no longer have that outlet to
Yeah.
have a place to maybe get on stage and just talk poetry, comedy, whatever.
Well, you're always welcome on Reynoso Noso. If you want to join me over here and shoot the shit, you're always welcome, my friend. You know where else you'd be great? Would you ever think about giving Kill Tony a try? Have you ever checked out Kill Tony? Tony
You know,
Hinchcliffe's show?
Yeah, I was watching that the other day, his Madison Square Garden thing,
Yeah, yeah.
and man, blown away by what Tony has done. I'm friends with Tony. He actually sits next to me at a lot of fights.
Okay.
So we're buddies, and watching what he did at Madison Square Garden, just the amount of people I was so happy for him. Like he's killing it. But Tony is, man, he is a behemoth at comedy. Like he is so good at it. Like just I mean, it's he's so good, man. And you don't realize how good he is until you see bad comedy.
Well, he gives you the opportunity every episode of Kill Tony to get to make the comparison, right? There's him, there's all these great comics, and then he'll have like obviously all the bucket pulls, and sometimes you get killers, and plenty of times you don't. So you're sitting there and you're like, you see the difference pretty quick, right?
And hey, it's the same thing like acting, same thing like fighting. You'll see the difference pretty quick. Just because you can tell jokes to your buddies doesn't mean you're gonna get on stage and be able to kill it with a mic in your hand when everybody's looking at you going, "Hey, make me laugh."
Right, right. And with that being said, I know you recently made your commentary debut at the Contender Series a week ago. So we're talking about shifting your perspective for kind of a new situation. Why don't we talk about how that went? So obviously we get you as an analyst all the time, but finally getting to sit in the booth next to DC and Dan Halley, what was that like?
It was amazing. I've been doing commentary for a while, but never at that level, with that level of production, with that level of, even with just the guys, like being with Dan Hellie, he's a complete pro. And then DC is, a portion of what we know in the world of commentary. He's a third of that. Like, so it's just this, and he's my friend too. So to be able to chop it up with those guys, especially on my debut, was great. And then the ring announcer, actually, Jazz Sakuro.
Right.
I haven't seen him in 15 years, but I used to commentate a show in Florida called Fight Time, and he was the ring announcer for that. So we both made our debuts 15 years later after working together for a show called Fight Time.
That's awesome, dude. And then, so as as a local, I commentate obviously in the regional scene. I have this dream, and I'd say it's a lot of the fighters, when I watch them ascend, I always say, like, you never know. There's always a dream that when you make it to that upper echelon, that I'll be there with you. And who knows, maybe we'll both be in the UFC one day. So that's really cool that you get to see a full circle moment like that for you and this ring announcer Jace at the Contender Series. Really cool, actually.
And 15 years, so
Wild.
never give up. You know what I'm saying? Never
Yes,
give
sir.
up. So that's the biggest lesson, is that if you stick around long enough and you're good enough, it's going to happen. You just stick around long enough, and you got to be good enough.
At the end of the day, the cream always rises to the top, right?
It will. It does. I tell that to my fighters all the time. They think they can finesse being good by fighting, crappy opponents. I'm like, dude, you'll get away with that for a while, but at the end of the day, you got to be good. Like if you want to succeed, you got to be good.
And when, like you said, just like acting, just like the other thing, those who know will know. And getting back to the Contender Series, the last 2 weeks have been absolutely wild. The week that you were there, 5 for 5, everybody gets signed. This Tuesday, 5 for 5, everybody gets signed. And they're not just getting signed. I think of the last 10 fights, 9 finishes. So it's like there's something in the air, and the fighters are understanding that, the foot is on the gas at the Contender Series right now. Dana's got a hot hand. You go out there and you make a statement, you could potentially, make a big move and catapult yourself. But I suppose it's a matter as a fighter recognizing that and making the most of the opportunity.
Well, I think that the reason why they're so eager to get these guys in is because they're hungry. And we got to understand this. Like, a lot of fans are very negative about the UFC's business model. Oh, they're just signing Contender Series guys because they're cheap and they're getting rid of the other guys. No, it's not necessarily that. It's because, if you've been in the UFC a while, you get a little comfortable. And you can see it in their performances. You get a little comfortable. You just, oh, I don't want to take that fight. No, I don't want to fight in Australia. No, I don't want to fight this guy. I want that guy. You get a little comfortable. And that's it's a reflection of their performances as well. You can see it; they're fighting comfortably. So the UFC's like, you know what? That's not our brand. That's not what attracts fans. Fans want to see dogs. Fans want to see good fights from beginning to end. And when you get these guys that get comfortable, the UFC's like, especially now with the Paramount deal, they're like, yo, we don't need you. Go, if you want to fight comfortably, go fight somewhere else. We want a dog in there. So when you see these Contender Series guys come up, look at them from their perspective. These guys are hungry and they want to fight. And the UFC's like, good, because we want you to fight.
They want to fight, and they're showing it by going out there and looking for a finish. Which, as old school guys, like however you care to judge fights, whether you think the 10-point must is best, or you should be looking at it as a whole. I think the old school guys, we all kind of look at it the same way. You got to go out there and look to finish, and whoever's looking for the finish usually is winning, right? Let's just talk about it. We're a couple weeks removed. UFC 319, we saw maybe the most dominant performance in a title fight, maybe in recent memory. Chimaev just, I mean, for lack of better words, just dominant from beginning to end. This has been the first time. Usually I can stand with my fellow, I don't know, hardcore fans or experts, and I could say against a casual, no, this is this and that is that. You're wrong. I'm right. This is the first fight that I can think of in recent memory that has so many people torn as to whether or not that was a masterclass in just Michelangelo painting the Sistine Chapel of perfection, or it was a boring fight where Chimaev didn't look for the finish the way he should have.
Can it be both?
I don't know.
It can.
I'm talking to Dinero Thomas. I want your thoughts.
It's both. It's both. I mean, it's a masterclass. Masterclass. Like to be able to do that to another human being and not allow him any options out. Right? To be able to just overwhelm him so bad and not, especially at that level. Like, this is the world champion. Prior to that moment, he was the very best 185-pounder in the world.
True.
And he had the belt to prove it. And he got dominated like that. That's a tremendously hard thing to do. But that doesn't necessarily mean that it was entertaining. But it wasn't entertaining to most people. I mean, it's like, Beethoven has songs that are incredibly difficult to do and play, but just because you play it doesn't mean that the people have to like it. So fighters have to be careful about this. Just because it was difficult doesn't mean that everybody has to like it. Again, they want to see exciting stuff, want to see moments. So am I upset with what Chimaev did? I don't care. He went out there and dominated the man. In fact, like the burden wasn't on him to be exciting. It's actually Dricus's fault. Let's not blame Chimaev. It's Dricus's fault. Like his defense should have been better to make Chimaev do something different. So it's Dricus's fault. So
that's a good point. Great point.
But it wasn't the most entertaining fight, but it was still incredibly difficult to do.
And I guess it's like it feels gross to say, like, well, Chimaev should have done more to finish. Like, do more. Like, how many crucifixes did he put him in? How many times did he just rinse and repeat to, like you said, the best in the world? There's a lot to be said for that.
And I don't know what his skill set consists of. Now, if I'm his coach and I know that he has the skill set to do it, I would be upset with him. But if he doesn't have the skill set to do it, how can you be upset with him? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, for sure. And like, everybody loves to give DDP all this, like, harp on the fact that he's so unorthodox. Well, sure, fair enough. Like, if he is that unorthodox, maybe you don't take any chances with him, right? Maybe you don't let up because you just keep it in your world. And clearly that's what Chimaev did. And I don't know. Yeah, I think I'm with you because I was like on the fence. I was like, I argued with some people. I was like, wait a minute, it's a master class, to go out there and just to keep doing this and to not let an inch of space. But at the same time, I did have to watch it in portions because I was, it wasn't the most entertaining,
But at times you're fast forwarding until you see some action, right? You got to fast forward a few parts because, like, all right, we've seen this. He's been held here for the last 2 minutes. I got to put it on times 2 to get through this.
Right, right. So I don't want to take up too much more of your time, but my friend, we've got a middleweight fight just around the corner that is, I think, that much more interesting given all this stuff with Chimaev and the 185-pound division. Next up, we got Nasruddin Imavov taking on Caio Borralho. Super exciting fight. Kind of a, I think it's fair to say, a title eliminator.
Yeah, either this one or Reiner de Ritter versus Fluffy coming up to October.
Right.
But I think it comes down to who's going to be more exciting that the fans are going to be more excited to see win. But this is definitely could be a title eliminator. The problem with this fight is that Imavov, or I'm sorry, he likes us to call him Imavov. He had get my John Anik on over here. Imavov. He's got a very difficult style to look good against because he's very laid back and he's very fast. So it's hard to really approach him and make him fight out of pocket. So he's hard to look good against. He's hard to looking exciting against. And I think Caio Borralho's got his hands full, not to win, but to look exciting. I think he can win, but to look exciting and do it's going to be difficult for him.
Those fighting nerds have so much momentum right now. And, much like their moniker of fighting nerds, they tend to come in with such a cerebral game plan. It'll be interesting to see if he can pull Nasruddin into more of a, maybe more of a dogfight.
It's not necessarily even a dogfight, but just more chances to exchange techniques, especially in close. From the outside, Imavov's too quick for him. So, Borralho's going to have his homework to do to get inside and just try to get as many exchanges as he can on the inside to see if he can't take advantage of them, get some takedowns and maybe find something. But Imavov is very difficult to look good against. He's just so patient. Like, he's not going to make a lot of mistakes. He's not going to do a lot. He's not going to give you a lot. And then when you do make a mistake, he's so fast. Like, he's really quick. So it's difficult to look good against. I mean, it's going to take a guy it would take a guy like Fluffy, who's a little more reckless, to pull him into a dogfight, as opposed to somebody like Borralho, who's more calculated. So honestly, we could be looking at a snooze fest in Paris.
Yeah, and it's funny you should mention Fluffy's kind of it's like I call it like a controlled chaos because it does seem a little like chaotic at some points, but man, he's just showing us more and more of his game with every outing, and he looked so good. He looked so good in his last outing. It'll be interesting to see if he's able to put on if that matchup turns out to be more exciting than Imavov Borralho, if it'll have more precedence over who gets a shot, at Chimaev. But that being said, let's treat it like a tournament real quick. Imavov Borralho, who's your pick?
I'm gonna go Borralho.
Borralho wins that, and now you got Fluffy de Ritter. Who wins that?
I like Fluffy in that.
So then we're gonna have Borralho taking on Fluffy. Who's fighting Chimaev?
See, this is the thing. This is why I said what I said about Chimaev. That he's not gonna fight it off. Yeah, he had everybody 40. He was like, "Oh, I'm gonna turn around and fight in October." So what do? We create a middleweight tournament to extend that longer.
Where's the spoon? Where's the spoon? Huh?
Yeah. So I'm interested to seeing how this turns out with Chimaev as champion. So hopefully he can prove me wrong and fight as often as everybody else assumes he will.
I didn't even think of it that way. You're spot on. They've essentially have created a middleweight tournament that gives Chimaev the liberty to do what he wants to do, and he's the champ. I mean, he should, right?
He should, but let's not try to act like that you are going to turn around and fight in October.
Well, yeah, I mean, everyone's a little loose on the mic right after a fight. Maybe he was getting a little carried away. I know everybody in the audience kind of side-eyed a little bit, like, really? Like, I don't know about it.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I'm not going to take up too much more of your time, man. This has been a pleasure and an absolute honor for me. Like I said, I've been following your career forever. I have, like I mentioned, you and I have a lot of ties, a lot of people that we know, know in the fight game that we never really crossed paths, whether it's old school guys like my boy Chris Martins, now Chris Gold, and or some of the ATT guys. It's just really cool to finally get a chance to link up with you myself. And at this stage in your career, I'm enjoying all things Dean Thomas more than ever. So that's kudos to you, man. Kudos to you to continue to pursue your passions and not just be pigeonholed to just combat sports. I think it's really, really cool. So why don't you tell everybody how we can stay up to speed on Dinero Thomas, how we can stay up to speed on Flowers, the short film, the release of Brotherhood. I think you're commentating at CFFC in Atlantic City coming up. Come on,
Yeah,
commentating.
hit me. It's a lot. All right, so if you want to check me sooner rather than later, I'll be in Atlantic City Saturday commentating the CFFC. Then the week after, I'll be in Paris commentating, and you'll see me at UFC BJJ commentating. But just on a regular daily basis, you can keep in touch with me. Dean Thomas Fight Court. You know, we put out stuff on that, and then also Flowers, a short film, is the Instagram handle, and then I also have a website for the movie called Flowers the Short, so you can stay abreast. But I got a lot of stuff coming out. Every year I say, man, wait till you see what I do next year. And I'm telling you now, wait till you see what I do next year.
How many plates can this guy have spinning at once? Only time will tell. Dean Thomas, thank you so much, my friend. Incredibly grateful. And look forward to catching you at CFFC this weekend.
All right, homeboy. I'll catch up with you, man.
Thank you very much, my friend. Bye-bye.
Peace.